the Nerd Theorists. I'm Andrew, and I'm going to be your host for this series. In this series of videos, I'm going to be taking you on a journey through a bunch of Commander decks. Some of them are old, some of them are new. My personal decks that I have in my collection, and because I'm a shadow, there's about 21 of them. Now you're going to see some of these decks are Nerd Theorist Commander clashes, so hopefully watching this series I'll give you a bit more insight into how they work. I mean, you might see one of mine really popping off on in the gameplay. You might think, I want to know what goes into that deck. So this will be a good series to check out. Now, unlike the other Nerd Theorists who've been playing Magic for years, decades, they're all relatively new to the Commander format, whereas myself, I've been playing EDH for about 7 or 8 years now, and as much as I like shuffling up and playing Commander, most of my job comes from the deck building itself, identifying those synergies, finding new ones to go in your deck, building the engines, tracking your deck for the value that works really well with your Commander. Now we play casual kitchen table Commander, which I think you'll see in the Commander gameplays. There's no CEDH to be seen in our playgroup, and that's what I'll be bringing you in these videos. Now, it's not to say that the decks themselves aren't powerful or they don't play well, but you're only going to get the odd combo here and there, and it's not like we're going to tutor for those combos or anything. And you're not going to see like old school Jewel everywhere and Mana Crypts, Jewel Lotuses, that sort of thing. The cards that just your everyday person isn't going to be able to afford. You're not going to see those. So these decks aren't going to break the bank. Now, with all that being said, for this first video, what I'd like to sort of do is give you a bit of an overview into how I myself go about building a new Commander deck or updating ones I currently use, because when you open a bunch of boosters, you get a load of new cards that you think, that'll go really well in this deck and that'll go really well in that deck, but what do I take out? And that's always a problem. Now, this is the Nerd Theorist, and being a self-confessed Excel nerd, I naturally thought I'll build a spreadsheet to help me keep track of the decks themselves, and also my collection. Now, I didn't just want it to sort of keep tabs on them and just to see where the cards are. What I wanted to do is see sort of some statistics behind each of the decks that help me identify where my deck might be falling down, where it might need improving. Things that I sort of wanted to highlight is like how much draw, how much removal, how much ramp do I have, how on theme the deck is, what my average mana value is, and sort of just for pure curiosity's sake, how much of the piece of cardboard that I've got worth. Now, if that sounds like a spreadsheet or something you'd want to check out and use for your own collection, what I'm going to do is leave a link to that in the description of the video. And you can just go ahead and download it if you want. And if you do and you use it for your collection, really like it, just leave a comment. Or if you think there's something you might want to show, but you don't know how to do it, just leave a comment in the video, and it's something I'll be able to look into. And I think for a lot of people who've been playing Commander a while, what I'm going to be bringing here isn't sort of new information, but sort of what I've identified is we can simplify how we go about building a deck to 4 elements, 3 of which are cornerstones to building sort of a functioning deck. Now, I'm not talking about building decks that are just going to win every game. That's not sort of what we're aiming to do. And statistically, you're only going to win a quarter of the games that you play. But what I am trying to do is, by identifying these cornerstones and these elements of what every deck needs, what I'm going to try and bring you is, if you sort of follow this as a bit of a guideline, when you turn up to the table and shuffle up and play, you're not just going to be sat there as a passenger. You're going to be able to interact. You're going to have core synergies that you're going to be able to play with your deck, and you're going to be able to play a game of Commander, because we all know they take forever, and the worst feeling is when you're sat there and your deck just isn't doing anything, or it's not competing at the same level as the other decks, and you sit there as a bit of a passenger. Now, the 4 elements that I identify, 3 of them I believe are cornerstones. So those are draw, ramp, removal or interaction. And the 4th one is sort of the theme of the deck and what your deck's trying to achieve, which you could really go into a lot of detail on, like protection, board wipes, and if you're in an aristocrat theme, you'd have like your sack outlets, your token producers, that sort of thing. You could really go into a lot of detail with that, but all the extra stuff other than ramp, draw and removal I sort of bundle into theme, because that's what your deck's about, and you don't want to go too granular into that. When I'm building a deck or making changes, what I'm trying to aim to do is sort of get to a score of 10 in each of those 3 cornerstones, and I do this by sort of implementing a grading system or a system of scoring cards that fall into those categories with a 1 or a 0.5. Now I know sort of what you're thinking. When does something get a 0.5 rather than a 1? Now, it's more straightforward than it sounds. Some cards will fall naturally into one of these categories, but you wouldn't want to be giving those a 1. Like, take draw for example. You've got cards like Opt, Ponder, Preordain. Now, they're not going to themselves grant you card advantage, but what they are going to do is grant you card selection. They're not really going to replace themselves, but they're going to be able to let you filter through a few cards and pick one that you want. So those would be getting a 0.5 in draw. Now, a similar sort of effect, which doesn't give you card advantage, and it's more of a higher form of card selection, is tutoring, sort of cards like Vampiric Tutor or Idyllic Tutor. Those I'll be scoring a 1 for sure, because what they're going to let you do is go through the full 99 of your cards and pick out a specific card that you're going to need in a certain situation. And now that effect is a lot more powerful than the other cards that I just mentioned before. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out that cards like Heuristic Study and Kinder Discovery, those cards over the course of a game, they're going to draw you like 4, 5, 6 cards, and they're going to get you a lot more value. But in the same breath, we don't want to score them more than a 1, because we don't want to undercook a category by overscoring a singular card. So at the end of the day, that's only 1 card in your 99. Let's look at removal for other examples. So removal comes with a stipulation, sort of Valorous Stance or Clip Wings, and Valorous Stance being like toughness over 5 and Clip Wings being removing creatures that have flying. Or spells that temporarily remove threats, like bounce things such as Baral's Expertise or Unsubstantiate. All those would sort of crawl into a 0.5 in a removal category, because they are removal, but they're going to have a right and wrong situation, and some of them aren't going to permanently remove threats. Now, in the same breath as that, you've got cards that do the same effect but are so powerful, they would get a 1. Things like Cyclonic Rift. Now, it's only going to bounce things, but it's going to bounce every opponent's things and all their things. So that thing's so powerful, that's always going to get a 1. And something like Slaughter the Strong, which is normally a good board wipe, but in an Arcades Walls tribal deck, that's going to be a one-sided board wipe, and 99% of your creatures are going to stick around. Those would definitely be getting a 1. Same as in draw, you've got your big hitters in categories. Cards like Toxic Deluge, Blasphemous Act, Ruinous Ultimatum. They're going to remove a large amount of threats, and some cards like Austere Command and Merciless Eviction, they're going to give you options, and options in Commander's really important thing. Cards that let you choose multiple modes or choose a mode between certain effects, they're always valued a lot higher. But I'm still only going to give them a 1, because at the end of the day, it's only 1 card in your 99. And like I said before, you don't want to undercook one of your categories, or overcook it even. And so for fullness, let's talk about ramp. So ramp, I'm only going to be grading certain cards in certain decks at 0.5. A lot of these tend to be sort of your one-time treasure producers or temporary mana makers. are specific cost reducers. You know, like Herald's Horn, or which reduces the cost of certain creature type by 1, or Savage Ventmaw, which makes 6 mana every time it attacks. They're not going to be as reliable source of ramp as say casting a rampant growth or a free visit, you know, that finds a land and puts it onto the battlefield. Now don't get those effects confused with like Smothering Tithe, because obviously that damn thing is going to get a big fat 1 in every single white deck because it's broken. Or Dockside Extortionist, we've all been across the table from a guy who plays one and creates like 10, 12 treasure tokens at once. Those are definitely going to get a 1. But for your cards like Curse of Opulence, Smuggler's Share, I'd only be giving them a 0.5 because they're the ramp and going to give you some degree of ramp, but it's not going to be as reliable as, say, casting Assault Ring. So I think that gives you a good overview in how the grading system sort of our scoring system that I've implemented works, and should give you a little insight into how I value cards and card effects. Now, ramp, draw and removal are all sort of important elements of a commander deck, but they're never the reason you build a deck in the first place. The reason you build a deck is always going to be you're going to be looking at spoilers or looking through your collection, seeing a legendary creature or sometimes Planeswalker and think, man, that guy is doing something awesome. I want to build around that, or this guy's going to be so good in my command zone that I'm going to have access to all the time. And that's where sort of Commander differs from like your other constructed formats, because you can lean really heavily into a creature that you're always going to have access to, and because you always have access to them, it opens up a world of building around and looking for synergies. And so when we build a deck, the rest of the deck, other than the ramp, draw and removal, what we want to do is identify the theme that we're trying to do and just lean into that theme. Now, I know I've said 10 for the cornerstone categories, but if your commander or theme wants to go lean a lot heavier on them, then the numbers are going to be much higher. Take sort of Niv Mizzet or Locust God, for instance. In the Niv Mizzet deck that I run, I'm sitting a lot closer to the 30 in the draw category, because all the deck is trying to do is just draw cards as fast as possible and as much as possible. So that leans a lot heavier into that. Whereas in the same breath, my Omnath Landfall deck, we're sitting much closer to 25 in the ramp category, and I think that's obvious because all you wanted to do is drop lands onto the battlefield because it synergizes so well with your commander. And then sort of have an Aminatu Planeswalker based deck where, because you're running Planeswalkers, you want to try and keep the board clear of creatures, and you don't want any of your opponents to be able to keep a threat on the board. So in that deck, the removal sits around the 25. Now, with all that being said, when I build a new deck, these aren't the avenues that I look when I'm picking out cards for theme. I'll try and look for cards that are going to synergize really well with what the commander's aiming to achieve. Now, if it happens to fit into one of them 3 cornerstone, then that's great. At the end of the deck, when you're looking to try and get those scores up to 10, that's one less that you're going to have to pick. So I think a good example of this is like Dark Salvation or Noxious School in the Will Help Zombie Tribal deck I run. Now, both fit into the theme of zombies, but and into the category of removal, but they obviously aren't as powerful as say an effect like a counter spell. But they are on theme with what the deck is trying to achieve, so they'd obviously get ones. Now, the final aspect of deck building is getting the land base correct. Now, I know it's a boring element of deck building, but it is one of the most important ones. Because if you don't play the right lands and don't go to the right colour, you're not going to be able to play your cards. Now, multicoloured lands are abundant these days, and depending on how fast and how slow your game plan is, that's going to dictate a lot about what you're doing with your land base and what lands you're going to include. Now, a couple of things I like to identify is sort of how much devotion in my whole deck do I have to each of the different colours, what my primary colour is, what my secondary colour is, and then what I try to do is mirror the mana base or land base so that it produces those it produces mana in a way that mirrors what the deck is, what the devotion of the deck is. Now, a number of lands, that's another big point on the deck, and as a general rule of thumb, I'll run anywhere between 33 and 40, but I wouldn't go below that, and I would never go higher than that. Average CMC of the deck being one of the biggest driving factors, and sort of the speed of the deck. So Nagila is a good example of one of the decks I run. So my CMC, or mana value, average mana value, in that deck is around 2.8, 2.9, and I'm aiming to go as fast as I can and try and combo out with a win. So in that, I'm only running 35 lands, and a lot of the lands in that, they don't enter the battlefield tapped. Whereas in my Yarrow deck, which is sort of a lot more reactive than proactive, and the game plan's much slower, I can afford a bit of more of a slower build-up that having more tap lands brings. And obviously, because the CMC is much closer to 4 than the 2.9 of Nagila, I'm running 37 lands. Now, sort of one thing that I've not mentioned in this, and it probably is the biggest driving factor of people's deck building choices, is budget. And I'm no different from this. So I know we'd all want to put a Grey Henge or a Fierce Guardianship into every single green or blue deck, but we don't all have the budget for that. And I think this is a good point to say. It is a game at the end of the day that's meant for enjoyment. Never ever, if you see a cool commander that you want to build around and you don't have the cards for, and you think, God, I need all these expensive cards to build it, otherwise it won't function. Never think that way. There is always budget options to every single card that goes into a deck, and it's never ever go ahead and put a load of money on a credit card to buy these cards. It's just not worth it. Real life always comes first. I think in these videos, what I'll try to do, I'll cover my current decks, and I'll go through all the aspects that I spoke about today. But what I also like to do is do, for the more expensive cards that I've got in my collection, I'd like to do budget options for alternative cards that fit the theme or do a similar sort of effect, but maybe not as powerful. And then also, some of my decks, obviously, if money was no object, sky's the limit, there's obviously big budget upgrades that I'd make, and I'll identify them for you as well, because obviously some people do have a lot more disposable income and could afford them. Hopefully, if you're new to the game of Commander or Magic, some of what I'm saying here will sort of help you when you're putting your own deck together. Now, I'm not going to tell you what every single card to put in the deck, but hopefully I'll give you the sort of the structure of how you go about building a deck that helps you play the game. Now, some of the decks I'm going to be covering here, you might want to check out for yourself. So we're going to be loading the deck lists onto Tapped Out and MTG Goldfish. So if you wanted to check those out for yourself, you can go on there, see all of the cards that are in it. Because obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover every single, or talk about every single card that goes into a deck. The video would just be far too long. So I'll talk about like the key elements. And again, if you've got any tips for me in the decks that I'm covering, or things you think synergize really well that maybe I've missed, and you think, oh, I've got this deck, but I run this in it and it works so well, I'd really want to hear about it, because obviously I'm constantly making changes to my decks and I'm always looking for sort of new synergies that I've not seen before. And you might not want to see every deck that I'm going to be covering in this series. So what I'll do, I'll put a list of the decks that I'm making videos on. I'll put it in the description, and you can just drop in and check those out as and when they get loaded. Once we've done those decks, what I'd like to do is for upcoming sets, you've got like the Brothers War. I know we're going back to Ixalan next year. There's the new Warhammer decks coming up real quickly. I'd like to do sort of in the new sets. I'd like to identify sort of like 2, 3, maybe 4 legends that I want to build decks around that look really interesting. And sort of what I'll do, I'll identify new synergies and maybe give you a bit of a deck list that I'd put together if I was playing the deck myself. So if all that sounds like something you'd be interested in, don't forget to look out for the next video in the series. Turn on those notifications. Don't forget to like and subscribe. thanks for watching, and until next time, stay nerdy.